Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Laura, this is Culture Nonsense, and once again I'm seeing if my dog will stay throughout the length of the video. He was very reluctant to come over here, so he may leave us. Anyway, today's video is going to be a little bit different. I know many of you watch my channel for my coverage of the Elizabeth Holmes trial, and if those of you who come to this video don't know about that, I'll link the playlist right up here for you all. Today, I'm going to be talking briefly about the Josh Duggar trial. I was playing around with making a few videos about this trial. However, I decided not to for a couple reasons. And one of them being that this is a very different trial from the Elizabeth Holmes case. It went very fast. Jury selection was on November 30th, and we had a verdict yesterday on Thursday, December 9th. The reason for this is because, it was a different type of trial with a federal investigation, coming from Homeland Security, and they had, I believe, an 18-month-long investigative process, and the trial was pretty much just 6 witnesses for the prosecution talking about what happened, what evidence was gathered, how they knew this was the case, and then the defense only brought 2 witnesses, which were not that great, in my opinion. We'll get to that later. So it would have been a little bit difficult to make updates for this as it was happening because it just went so quickly. So I wanted to make a video about why I'm not particularly surprised about the verdict, happy with the verdict, and to give a little bit of a breakdown from what went on inside the courtroom that I think made this a relatively easy decision for the jury to make. So for those of you who don't know, Josh Duggar's family is pretty famous from their TLC show, 19 Kids and Counting, had a couple names before that, before there were 19 kids, was arrested on April 29th, 2021 for having explicit photos and videos of CP on his laptop. And as you might imagine, that would be a pretty difficult case to kind of fight against, especially when there's an 18-month-long investigation to, find these materials on your device. And the defense, their only strategy was just kind of to say, how do we know that these are Josh's? Maybe someone else put them here. Maybe the laptop was accessed by someone else at his work. We don't know how the stuff got here. It could maybe not have been him. So it was just a little bit of, we don't know for sure that these are his materials. However, the prosecution did a bunch of work to show that these are the days we know that he accessed it, he was at work, this, computer has a password, he asked someone about how to set up this Linux protection. So there were many, many reasons that made it seem very likely that these materials would have been his. One thing that was brought up in court was talk about this program Covenant Eyes, which I find pretty interesting because at my old work, they were one of my clients, so I actually filed a couple patents for them. And it's basically a software that will help people who might have issues or, addictions of some sort looking at things online. And essentially what this program does is track your internet usage and send it to an accountability partner. So if you do happen to look at any of these things, someone is going to know about it, it'll be flagged and sent to them, and then they'll help keep you accountable if you would like to stop looking at these things. However, I believe it can't run on Linux. So of course, on the HP computer where all these things were found, there was Linux installed, which basically acted as a partition to this software. So if you were to open Linux and do all of your, browsing everything through that, the program couldn't track you, which is a major flaw in my opinion. Also, if I get anything slightly wrong in how I am describing computer mechanisms, I am not a super duper tech person, so I apologize if anything I'm saying is slightly incorrect. Feel free to correct me in the comments below. So to go back to the issues that the defense had, the opening statement from Josh's lawyer, he said, "Why does it have to be Josh? You're going to see some disturbing images, but it's not about that. It's a classic old-fashioned whodunit." And in my opinion, that was maybe, a little bit too lighthearted for this case that we're talking about, but They had to make some type of argument as to why he was not guilty. And let me underline the fact that this is very, very, very disturbing material. I think that was another reason why I didn't really want to touch this case so much, because it's just extremely disturbing, graphic, horrific, and we're not really going to go into that. Just suffice it to say that I believe one of the FBI agents who was involved in this, and it's, you know, his career tracking down these things and, you know, investigating and prosecuting these people, he said that this case was like in the top 3 worst he had ever seen. Another reason I think the defense had a particularly hard time in this case is because, like I said, there was an 18-month investigation, and the people who were involved in this investigation had been doing this for a very long time. They were very skilled professionals, and the defense brought forth, you know, I believe like computer forensics examiner for their first witness, and she tried to poke a lot of holes in what the prosecution was saying, basically opening up the window for, well, maybe during this time period when the device was online, someone could have gotten in there and put this stuff on his computer, or maybe this could have happened, or we're not exactly sure about this time window of things. Just doing the job of the defense, essentially, to open up doors to other possibilities. However, that might have been more effective if several things about her expertise weren't kind of called into question later. On the stand, she said that she had a decade of experience. And keep in mind, this is 2021, and then it was learned that she did not graduate college until 2015. So included in her decade of experience, I guess, is 4 years as a college undergrad as well. Or actually, I don't know if it was necessarily her undergrad, but at least there was time that she's counting as her professional experience where she was in college. She also testified about the many times that she had served as a witness in court. And when she was asked about how many of those might be federal cases, from further questioning, it kind of turned out that this is her first federal case. So again, not as experienced as she was leading people to believe. And further questioning also revealed that her training never included Linux-specific courses or any training on the torrential downpour software used by law enforcement. So she was also kind of talking about things that she wasn't super versed in. It was confirmed that she also never listened to an interview with Josh Duggar that was pretty influential in this case. And there were other times they questioned her, and it appeared like she wasn't aware or couldn't remember of other specific pieces of information in this investigation. So again, during the cross-examination, the prosecution was kind of showing that she might not have as much information as she's claiming to have, or she may not have looked at everything, so her testimony is a little bit tainted in that way. I think that her testimony was so bad, or at least inaccurate or misleading in some points, that actually the prosecution's witness, James Fautrell, who was a forensic expert as well, was called back to the stand after her because he felt like, listening to her testimony, there were so many things that he had to clarify that, like I said, were either kind of incorrect that she said or misleading. So a kind of breakdown of some of those things is that he talked about how there was absolutely no evidence that the computer was remotely accessed on these dates in May when things were placed into it, and that someone actually had to be physically present at the computer downloading these things. It wasn't as if someone could have placed them there remotely. Something also very interesting about that first interview that I mentioned that the FBI did with Josh Duggar when they went to the car lot, they were asking a bunch of questions, as you do in an interview, and at one point Josh said, "I'm not denying guilt. I don't want to say the wrong thing," which is a pretty interesting statement to make if then you're going to later plead not guilty. I don't know if he was trying to speak to something else, but either way, it's kind of pretty damning evidence. What's also really interesting is that there have been a couple statements that have come out from his family, and from the wording in there, it seems like they're not trying to appeal his case, or at least they kind of seem satisfied with the guilty verdict, or at least seem to think that it's true based on all the evidence that was presented in court. We don't know if he's going to try to appeal, but you know, his sentencing isn't going to happen for another couple months, maybe up to 4 months, I think. Sometimes things take a while. One other little interesting tidbit is that his dad, Jim Bob, is running for a vacant state Senate seat in Arkansas for a special election. And I believe at one point when he tried to run for public office in the past, he ran on a platform of the death penalty for all people who were found guilty of such things that his son was recently found guilty of. So I'm assuming he's not going to continue with that political stance going forward. As I mentioned before, this is not at all like the Elizabeth Holmes case I've been covering. The victims of these crimes are small children, and we should do everything to prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law. And I am happy with the verdict. I think that the evidence proved that he had these images, he got them himself, and I'm happy that someone who's actively involved in the exploitation, misuse, and abuse of children is now behind bars. No matter what you think about his family or their religious views, I think this action is categorically despicable and wrong. So I'm glad he's going to be held accountable for it. Anyway, like I said, this is going to be just a short video with some of my thoughts from the trial over the last couple weeks. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to this channel if you'd like more information like this. Additionally, as the Elizabeth Holmes trial is wrapping up, I'm going to have a little bit more bandwidth before I start covering Sunny, so if there are any other video topics or suggestions that you might like me to do, leave them in the comments as well. I have not forgotten about the one person who asked me to do videos about the Satanic Panic, and I am planning to do that at some point in the future. It's just kind of hard while covering something like the Elizabeth Holmes trial where you have to keep making content to stay up to date. Anyway, that's all for me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!